What's going on, guys? Superspan here. Today we got a little bit of a different setup here, but we're gonna start off with a fun fact here. So, did you know Kobe Bryant holds the record for the most missed shots in NBA history? I did not know that personally, but thought that was a little bit interesting fact. And let's get right into the video. All right, so welcome, guys, to my 2019-2020 NBA season breakdown. Alright, so today we're just going to be going over the Eastern Conference. Basically, the goal of this video is to sort of, in my opinion, break down which teams' key contributors are, X Factor type players, and finally, my thoughts on what their final record will be this season. So let's get straight into it. So I really like Wendell Carter's game because he's more of an interior defender, rebounding, can give you a little bit of scoring in the post type player. Personally, I think he could be one of the key leaders of this young group. You could see it as soon as he got drafted into this team, his leadership abilities, and yeah, really good player. Really like him. And then next, we've got Thomas. Okay, we're going to have to go down here. Satoransky. I think it's... I'm pretty sure that's how you spell it. Thomas Satoransky was a really underrated pickup for the Chicago Bulls this year. He probably is either going to start off the season at point guard, or he'll come off the bench as sort of a six-man type of deal. I really like this guy. He's a good defender, can shoot the three really well. You saw it when he took over for John Wall in Washington. Had a pretty solid year. So next we're gonna go with, I got my notes over here. So we're gonna go with Thaddeus Young. I am not spelling out that entire name because I do not want to make this video 40 minutes long. So Thaddeus Young, he's a scrappy kind of guy. He'll get you rebounds, some scoring. He can shoot the three a little bit. And he's a really, really good pickup. Veteran leadership. I think this is something that the Bulls really, really needed, especially as a young team. So, next up, we're going to go with Coby White. Now, when you look at Coby White, he doesn't have the longest wingspan. In the summer league, he kind of was a little bit iffy, but you can still see potential. This guy has moves, and I mean this guy. He could be a stud for the Bulls for a long time. I feel like he's going to be a long-term option at point guard. Really, really good player, good shooter, solid playmaker. He just needs to work on his finishing around the rim. Some of his shot decisions that he was making in the summer league was a little iffy, but nonetheless, really good player. Alright, next up we're going to go with the X Factors. Now keep in mind throughout this video, this is all my opinion, so please go easy on me in the comment section, but still, nonetheless, I think this is a pretty popular opinion amongst, all the NBA fans, which teams' players are the best, so it's whatever. But anyway, so we're going to start off with Zach LaVine. Now, if you know basketball, you know that Zach LaVine is an up-and-coming star. In my opinion, he could be a scoring champ type player, all-star. Now, am I being biased? Sure, a little bit. But you look at all the articles online and all these people in the NBA and everything saying Zach LaVine is the real deal. Now, at least he looks like he's trying on defense. At some points of last year, he looked like his defense improved a little bit. His defense is still very shaky, but nonetheless, he's a great player, great scorer. He's not just a dunker anymore. Remember that, folks. He can be a 27 to 30 points per game type player. Okay, so next we're going to go with my personal favorite player on this team, one of my favorites in the NBA, Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen is another up-and-coming star type player to me. He's not going to give you, I don't think he's going to give you at least 25 to 30 points per game, maybe somewhere in the low to mid 20s, but with 10 plus rebounds per game. I mean, I did not expect him to be able to rebound and play defense really that well in the paint, but his rebounding is actually pretty darn good. I mean, he almost averaged 10 rebounds, per game last year, and that is a huge improvement. His three-pointer was 36%, I believe. Really, really good young team here in Chicago. Again, I might be biased here, but look it up. I mean, the Bulls got one of the youngest and one of the best young groups in the NBA here. All right, next up we're going to do the Philadelphia 76ers. So some of their key contributors, a guy that I really, really like is Al Horford. Now, they say a lot of the stuff that Al Horford does for your team doesn't show up on the stat sheet, or his stats aren't as pretty as other players might be, but this guy is so good. Underrated. Underrated three-point shooter, solid rebounder, scores in the paint. Really, really good player. I really like Al Horford. And then next up, we're going to go with none other than Josh Richardson. So Josh Richardson is one of those players that can give you a three when you need it. He's a solid scorer. You saw it with the Miami Heat. Really good, really underrated player. I mean, a lot of these guys on this list, especially on the Sixers, it seems like, are a little bit underrated. You got Al Horford and Josh Richardson, right here. So we're gonna go with next. I believe I put Tobias Harris. Now, I love Tobias Harris. He's a phenomenal three-point shooter, good rebounder, especially for a small forward, good scorer overall, really good player. I mean, you saw it with the Orlando Magic, and then with the LA Clippers, and now the Philadelphia 76ers signed him to a massive contract. A lot of Sixers fans might not agree with it, but I mean, I really think he is one of the most useful players for your team. I mean, he really ties the whole thing together. If you wanted to get Jimmy Butler or keep Jimmy Butler, I honestly feel like you would have had to have paid so much more for him. I'm not sure exactly what the Heat paid for Jimmy Butler, but I feel like getting Tobias Harris was probably the better option in terms of money. But let's get into the X factors. Alright guys, so now for the X factors of the Philadelphia 76ers. You guys already know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. So we got Ben Simmons. Alright, so you already know who Ben Simmons is. He's the, basically, not the second coming of Magic Johnson, because he can't really shoot threes yet, but he did say recently, very recently, that he wanted to start trying to shoot threes, which would be a very interesting thing to watch. I think he could do it. He's a very talented player in the league. Came in as a power forward. Now he's a point guard. I believe he's like 6'9", something like that. So he's very good at it too. And that's the thing. He's very mobile, very agile. He can give you some buckets, especially in the paint. He's a great playmaker. Really like Ben Simmons. So next up, we got none other than the trash-talking god, who apparently isn't going to trash-talk anymore, but I don't believe it, Joel Embiid. Now, Joel Embiid is one of those rare, I feel like, once-in-a-generation type players. So he can obviously score in the paint. I believe his three-pointer is not too bad, but it's not really that great anyway, but whatever. He's an elite rebounder, elite defender, one of the best centers in the game, if not the best center in the game today. I'm really high on Joel Embiid. This Philadelphia 76ers team is stacked. I mean, you got Ben Simmons, you got Josh Richardson, you've got Tobias Harris, Al Horford, and Joel Embiid all on the same team. This team, I feel like, is going to win 50-plus games. I feel like, okay, so I predict their record to be somewhere in the high 50s. So let's move on to the next team. All right, so up next, as you can maybe see, is the Boston Celtics. So this is one of the more interesting offseason scenarios that I remember in recent history. I mean, you got Kyrie Irving in the prior season, before the start of this season, basically, before the start of last season, I can't speak, saying that he plans on re-signing with the Boston Celtics to the entire stadium before one of the preseason games or whatever the case was. That honestly is really awkward since obviously, as we all know, he signed with the Brooklyn Nets. So let's get right into that. Alright, so key contributors here are, who did I have at first? Gordon Hayward. Okay, so Gordon. Alright, so you all know Gordon Hayward. Was a star in Utah, then he got hurt, he came to Boston, then got hurt, and then he came back, didn't look so hot, but I still believe in this guy. I think he could be a huge contributor to this team, especially now that Kyrie is gone. I feel like he can start scoring like he used to again. He used to be a solid three-point shooter, really good type player. Unfortunately, didn't have a great year last year, so. Okay, so next up, we've got Enes Kanter. Now this guy is a solid rebounder, can give you some points in the paint. I really like Enes Kanter's game. I feel like he could bring a lot to this Boston Celtics team. I feel like they made a lot of good, sort of underrated moves in the offseason. I mean, they did what they could with Kyrie. They signed Kemba Walker, Enes Kanter. I feel like it's a really, really good, solid team. They got Taco Fall. Unfortunately, Taco Fall's not going to be on this list right now, but shout out to Taco Fall. Really like his game. Really tall. Can protect the paint, rebound, and all that stuff. Next up, Jaylen Brown. Okay. And before I go into Jaylen Brown, I do just want to reiterate, I know I said I'm going to predict their records after everything. That's going to be that's going to be at the end of the video. I'm going to do a, just entire breakdown. Don't know if I'm going to do standings, but we'll see exactly how that goes. So, Jaylen Brown. Now this guy, he's still very young. I believe he's going into his 4th season, if I'm not mistaken, in the NBA, and 3rd or 4th. He's one of the good young scorers, defender, two-way type guys. I really like his game. A lot of people do. He seems to be a real workhorse in the gym. Really like Jaylen Brown. So, next up, one of my favorite players to watch, even in college, Marcus Smart. And I do mean smart. This guy is one of the more energetic type players in the league. He is such a great defender. And if you know me, I absolutely love players who can defend really well, sort of bring that extra spark to the game and make it real interesting to watch. I mean, this is the type of guy that will get in the face of your best player no matter who it is and really lock them down and just really be a pest on the court there. One of the most underrated players in the league. And any player in the NBA will tell you that. Marcus Smart is a fantastic player, and the Celtics, they know they're lucky to have this man. I mean, anybody in the league looks for a guy like this, looks for a guy like Marcus Smart. So, with that being said, let's get into the X Factor type players for the Boston. The X Factor type players for the Boston Celtics got Jason Tatum. Obviously, this guy can score. Didn't really have the best three-point shooting season last year, but obviously he's still very young. I believe in this guy. Great young player. Then you got none other than Kemba Walker. Okay, I'm gonna fix that there. Kemba Walker is a elite type scorer, great 3-point shooter, playmaker. He can do it all. I mean, this is a fantastic signing, especially after losing a guy like Kyrie Irving. The Boston Celtics are still one of the more elite teams in the NBA. I really like them. I really think that the signing of Kemba Walker, obviously retaining Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all those guys, is a really good, really big deal for the Boston Celtics. So with that being said, let's move on to another. All right, so next up we got the Brooklyn Nets. Now, this is a team that with D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, all those guys last year put up a great year. I mean, I believe they were 42-40. They made the playoffs after just a few years of being the laughing stock of the league. Now they're one of the best young teams in the NBA, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we got first here Joe Harris, great 3-point shooter, was in the 3-point competition. I believe he won it, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure. If I'm wrong, correct me. So Joe Harris, really good shooter. And then we got Spencer Dinwiddie. So you got Spencer Dinwiddie, one of the best bench players, 6 men in the league. Great scorer, great player. And then next up we got Caris LeVert. Okay, Caris LeVert, again, one of those great scoring playmaker type guys. You really want him on your team because he can just give you a bucket whenever. Now, he has a injury history, if you will, and I really like this guy. Really hope he comes back and has a fantastic year this year. I believe he will. And let's move on to last. Jared Allen. I hold some animosity towards this guy because he, what did he do? He dunked on Larry Markkinen. Crazy dunk, insane guy. Great defender, rim protector, rebounder. Really like the effective players. As you can see, I'm going to speed this up a little bit by just writing it down before I record the video. So we got Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Now, I believe that Kevin Durant was a sign and trade. Kyrie Irving, I believe he just signed with them. I think he opted out of Boston and then signed here. Obviously, two of the most dynamic players in the league. This is going to be a crazy, crazy, scary duo to watch once Kevin Durant comes back. I feel like Kyrie Irving is enough to propel this team back into the playoffs. Maybe at a top 5, top 3 seeded team. And yeah, obviously, you know, Kevin Durant can score really well, elite defender. Kyrie Irving can also score, elite playmaker, great 3-point shooter. Not one of the more, I don't really consider Kyrie one of the best leaders in the NBA just because it seemed like he sort of gave up on Boston. But if you're watching this, Kyrie, which I guarantee you you're not, please don't break my ankles. All right, so let's move on to the next. All right, so our next team we're going to be focusing on is the Detroit Pistons. So some of their key contributors, as you can see, got Derrick Rose, Reggie Jackson, and Luke Kennard. So Derrick Rose obviously had the resurgence in his scoring and his season overall, basically. Good playmaker, solid scorer, improved three-pointer, which is really important, especially in the NBA nowadays. It's something that he really, I guess, prides himself on. Reggie Jackson, great scorer. Well, solid scorer. I can't really say great, but he's a solid point guard. Really, I would say he's a really good backup point guard. But as a starting point guard, he'll do the job for you. Luke Kennard, obviously a good 3-point shooter. Needs to improve on his scoring, but he's obviously still very young. So Luke Kennard, Derrick Rose, and Reggie Jackson. So let's move on. All right, so these guys here are their X Factor players. So you got Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. I really feel like this duo still has some potential. I don't think that the Pistons will ever really be a championship contender with this group. But, I mean, nonetheless, it's still fun to watch, right? We got Blake Griffin, good rebounder, good scorer, improved his 3 a lot, which is awesome for him. I mean, just watching him shoot the 3 and his moves, his dribbling moves are just really insane. Excuse me. And then you got Andre Drummond, one of the best rebounders, if not the best rebounder in the NBA. Good rim protector, can score in the paint a little bit. Obviously can't shoot at all, but nonetheless, solid young, well not young, but solid team we got here in Detroit. Alright, so we're going to stick with the blue team here. We're going to go with the Orlando Magic. So some of their key contributors are Mo Bamba, Evan Fournier, and Jonathan Isaac. So we're going to start off with Mo Bamba here. One of the best young centers in the league. He can play defense. He's really long, rebounding. Obviously, he needs to get more minutes to really show us what he's capable of. But as we saw in college and then a little bit of last year, dude can defend and rebound. And next up, we got Evan Fournier. Solid scorer, average, I believe, 16 points per game, if I'm not mistaken. And then we got Jonathan Isaac. Still really young, underdeveloped. I mean, I really believe in this guy. He's a tall, lanky type small forward. He can score a tiny bit. He score a little bit. Obviously still young. Didn't get a whole lot of minutes. And then he can rebound. His rebounding is really well. So some of the Orlando Magic X Factor players are Aaron Gordon and Nikola Vukovic. So Aaron Gordon, he can obviously score a little bit, improved 3, rebounding, very athletic type player. And then you got Nikola Vukovic, who is, I would say, at least a top 10 center in the league. Really underrated guy. Kind of hope he gets out of Orlando. Not really sure what they're trying to do with this entire team. I didn't really include Markelle Fultz in this and the key contributors or anything because still very underdeveloped. We haven't really seen much of him, but this is the X Factors for the Orlando Magic. Let's move on. Not sure if you can see this well, but this is the Charlotte Hornets. So, got key contributors Terry Rozier and Malik Monk. So Terry Rozier can provide a little bit of scoring. We haven't really seen him too much as a starter. Last year was a very disappointing year for him in Boston, so they let him go. Obviously, the Charlotte Hornets signed him here, hoping he could at least do some sort of replacement for Kemba Walker, which I don't really think he's going to do too well there, but who knows? Hopefully, in a sort of leadership role, he thrives. You got Malik Monk, one of the younger players on their team. Young scorer, can shoot a little bit, can dunk pretty well. That's really about it. Let's hope he kind of molds into the player that they thought he was going to be once they drafted him. And with that being said, let's move on to the X Factors. Now, obviously, with this team, there's not a whole lot of X Factors. As a matter of fact, there's only one in my opinion, and that is Miles Bridges. I think he's their best player with the most potential. Obviously, he can dunk really well. He needs to work on his three-pointer, but other than that, I mean, he's a really young, athletic player. I really like his game. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. Real bright spot on an otherwise sort of dark and grim team. Probably going to contend to be the worst team in the NBA. But yeah, with that being said, let's get into the next team. So, next up, we've got the New York Knicks. Key contributors, Kevin Knox, Bobby Portis, Dennis Smith. Kevin Knox is probably one of their best young players on the team. He can score a little bit. Let's see what I got. He can score a little bit. Oh yeah, solid rebounding for a small forward, and he's got a decent three-pointer. Bobby Portis, small sample size last year. He only played about 20-something games. He had a solid three-pointer. He improved it a lot. Scoring, rebounding, all that great stuff for Bobby Portis comes in his package. And then you got Dennis Smith Jr. Really athletic young point guard, can score a little bit. Really like him. So let's move on to their X. All right. So, as you can see, their X Factors are R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle. Now, I know saying R.J. Barrett is the X Factor on an NBA team is a little bit of a stretch because he is a rookie. But he's obviously very good. He didn't have the best summer league, but you saw him in college. He did kind of have a little bit iffy year towards the end there, but nonetheless, he was projected to be the number 1 pick for a reason at some point. I really believe in his game. R.J. Barrett is a young scorer. He can shoot the three a little bit, and then you got Julius Randle. who really blew up last year. Great rebounding, great scoring for the New Orleans Pelicans. Really like his game. Again, I love anybody that can rebound, score the paint, real grit and grind type player. And let's move on to... Alright, so next up we got the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, we got Darius Garland, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr., and Cedi Osman. So, you're going to see a lot of scoring with this team. It probably won't translate to the NBA level just yet because they obviously still a very young group. But I should say they have a lot of scoring potential. So Darius Garland didn't play much in college, but we all know him as a great three-point shooter, playmaker. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Steph Curry. Next up, we got Jordan Clarkson. We all know this guy. He improved his scoring. Really good player. Larry Nance, rebounding, defensive, athletic type player. And Cedi Osman, solid three-point shooter. Pretty good rebounder for a small forward. And then obviously scoring, I believe he averaged like 13 points per game or something like that. He's a solid young player. Okay, so we've got Colin Sexton and Kevin Love as the Cavaliers X Factors. Colin Sexton, young bull. Man, this guy's an energy guy. Can play defense really well. I believe in his defensive abilities. Three-point shooter, not too bad. Not too bad of a scorer either. Kevin Love, we all know him as well, I should say, as a rebounding, scoring type guy. Really like Kevin Love. They're probably going to trade him, but we'll see to who soon. So, Colin Sexton and Kevin Love. Now, let's move on to the next team. Okay, so their key contributors for the Washington Wizards are Rui Hachimura and Ish Smith. So, we're going to start off with Ish Smith. Solid scorer, playmaker, really kind of a spark guy, an energy type guy. Fan favorite in Detroit. The fans really liked him there. They were sad to see him go, but now he's on the Washington Wizards. And then you got Rui Hachimura, who he can score a little bit for you. He can good facilitator, good scorer, 3-point scoring. You know, it's one of his more strong suits. So, Rui Hachimura, Ish Smith. Let's move on to their X Factors. Wizards X Factors. You got John Wall, Bradley Beal. Now, John Wall is probably going to be out for the year, but he's one of the best facilitators. He's really fast, can score in the paint really well, can drive to the paint really well. And then you got Bradley Beal, who's an excellent scorer, one of the best scorers in the league, can shoot the three really well, really like him. Unfortunately, I don't think this team is going to be too good either. Got a lot of missing pieces there after they looked really solid a couple years ago, which is really unfortunate for them. But John Wall, Bradley Beal, John Wall is going to be out. Bradley Beal is going to be the main focal point of this team. So let's move. Okay, so we got Miami Heat. Some of their key contributors are Tyler Hero, Dion Waiters, Goran Dragic, and Justice Winslow. So with Tyler Hero, you got 3-point shooting. Dion Waiters, you got a little bit of scoring, 3-point shooting type there. Didn't have a solid year last year, but I'm a huge fan of this guy. I feel like he's an underrated, underdog type guy. Next up, you got Goran Dragic. He's a solid starting point guard, man. I mean, solid scoring, playmaking, 3-point shooting, really useful type player. Then we got Justice Winslow. This guy can jump out of the gym. He can finish in the paint for you. He's got an improved three-pointer, solid defender. I really like his game. So let's move on to their next up. We've got Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Jimmy Butler, obviously one of the best two-way players in the league. I personally think he's a good leader. Obviously, you hear the rumors or the stories about him not exactly molding well with players in the locker room, but he seems to really enjoy Miami so far. Really like him. I miss him on the Bulls, but we had to move on. He had to move on. Next up, we got Bam Adebayo. Solid rebounder, defensive type player, can score in the paint really well, decently well. Paint protector, inside scoring, so like I said. Solid young team. I really feel like they can get some more free agents in the upcoming year. Maybe trade for somebody, who knows. So So yeah, Miami Heat. Okay, so next up we've got the Atlanta Hawks. So key contributors here, you got Cam Reddish, Kevin Huerter, and Jabari Parker. So this is one of the best young teams in the NBA. You got Cam Reddish, who's a solid two-way player. The Atlanta Hawks and many people in the NBA believe that this guy will be a steal for them. And then you got Kevin Huerter, really good three-point shooter. A lot of people say he can be like sort of the Klay Thompson to Steph Curry. They really want him to be the shooting guard alongside Trae Young for a long time because I think he can be a really, really good player for that. And then Jabari Parker. This is a guy who I am a big fan of. Underrated rebounder, solid scorer off the bench especially. Let's move on to their X Factor. So let's move on to one of the most exciting young duos in the NBA. Got Trae Young and John Collins. I mean, if you have watched these guys play, John Collins is a rim wrecker. Can rebound pretty well. Trae Young, obviously a great three-point shooter, great playmaker. Really exciting team to watch. I really feel like this team can be one of the best up-and-coming teams in the league, and I cannot stress that enough. Atlanta Hawks fans, you better watch out because you are going to be watching some insanely fun basketball, and I am really jealous of this team. Trae Young and John Collins, really great players. Okay, so sorry I used yellow for this team, but obviously that is their main color. Don't know if you can see this really well, but we've got the Indiana Pacers. Their key contributors being T.J. McConnell, Malcolm Brogdon, and T.J. Warren. So a couple of TJs on here. T.J. McConnell, solid mid-range player, really kind of a spark energy type guy. They really liked him in Philadelphia. I'm a personal fan of him. Malcolm Brogdon, solid playmaker for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now he's on the Indiana Pacers. Three-point shooter. And then you got T.J. Warren, who can be one of the most exciting two-way players. Great three-point shooter. Don't know why the Phoenix Suns let him go. Strange move by them. But let's move on to their X Factor. All right, so their X Factor players are Victor Oladipo and Miles Turner. So Victor Oladipo, one of the solid. I think he's still a solid two-way player. Obviously had a great first year with the Indiana Pacers. Second year got hurt. Still a great player. Really exciting to watch. Improved three. Can score in the paint a little bit and can play defense a little bit. We all know that from Victor Oladipo. And obviously he's got a great dunk. Then you got Miles Turner. Can score in the paint. Rebound for you. I really feel like he's an exciting center, especially for the Indiana Pacers. Really good fit for them. I feel like this team is going to be a solid team. So let's watch out for them. Let's move on to the next. So we're going to move on to the Toronto Raptors, the reigning NBA champions. So you've got Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Fred VanVleet. Now Marc Gasol, obviously an aging center, but he's still a very, very solid center for them. He's a really key contributor to this team. Solid shooter, especially from the mid-range, rebounder, defender, former defensive player of the year here. And then you got Serge Ibaka, who has improved his three drastically. Solid defender, still a solid rebounder. And then you got Fred VanVleet, one of my personal favorite bench players. Can score off the bench really well for them. Can give them a quick three, quick bucket, really a bucket getter type player. And let's move on to their X Factors. So their X Factors, as you can see, Kyle Lowry, great shooter, great facilitator. Really like him. And then none other than Spicy P. I could not help but write his nickname. That is one of the most hilarious nicknames I've ever heard. Spicy P. Pascal Siakam, one of the best up-and-coming players in the league. Can score really well, can rebound. One of the best young players in the league. Really, really good young player in this league. I really feel like the Toronto Raptors, even without Kawhi Leonard, will still be a big player in the Eastern Conference. So let's move on to the last. All right. So last but certainly not least, the Milwaukee Bucks. Key contributors, Eric Bledsoe, a little bit of an energy type guy, really strong player. He can score a little bit for you too. Brook Lopez, an improved three, rebounding. I mean, who saw his three-pointer improving like that? I personally did not. Super impressive player. Really like him. George Hill, he's kind of fallen off, but I had to include him because I really feel like nobody else on their bench can really be considered a key contributor. I mean, I might be wrong. I probably am wrong. Please don't bombard me in the comment section. But anyway, George Hill, veteran presence nonetheless, smart player. He can really teach this team a lot. And yeah, he scored a little bit for him. So let's move on to their X Factors, and I think you already know where I'm going. X Factors, we got Chris Middleton and none other than Giannis, don't call me MVP anymore, Antetokounmpo. So, yes, I did spell that correctly on my first try. Chris Middleton, great two-way player, can shoot the three, can defend, your best player, really good. And then, obviously, Giannis really needs no description. I mean, this man can do it all except shoot three, of course, which he wants to try to work on, and that's really good. I love a player that is willing to work on their game. Giannis Antetokounmpo, man, he can facilitate a little bit. You saw him play a little bit of point guard. He can play any position, really. He can finish in the paint. He can play defense. He can rebound. He can do it all. I really, really like this guy. I've even got his jersey. Really good player. I really feel like this Milwaukee Bucks team they have a real chance of making it, really good chance of making it to the NBA Finals. So, without further ado, let's go and look at the record prediction. Okay, so these are my final record predictions. So we're going to go through it really quickly. So, Milwaukee 61-21, Chicago 39-43, Philadelphia 57-25, Brooklyn 46-36, Miami 44-38, Charlotte 16-66, Toronto 47-35, Orlando 40-42, Detroit 37-45, Indiana 45-37, Atlanta 41-41, New York Knicks 22-60, Boston 46-36, Washington 28-54, and finally Cleveland at 21-61. So I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. This might be a little bit of a long video, but you know what? It's something that I really wanted to do. I really enjoyed this topic here. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, especially if you guys watch the entire video. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.